Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching NewsX World. Let's first take a look at our top stories. Rescue efforts are ongoing in Myanmar and Bangkok as hopes begin to fade following Friday's 7.7 magnitude earthquake. A week of mourning will start today in Myanmar as the Bangkok building collapse search continues. Iran says they will have to acquire nuclear weapons if they are attacked by the United States. This comes after US President Donald Trump said he would consider bombing Iran if they didn't agree to a nuclear deal. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office says he has reversed the decision to appoint Navy Chief Eli Shavit as the new head of Shin Bet. It follows protests from allies with other candidates to be considered to replace Ronan Bar. The United States says it expects all parties on the ground in Gaza to comply with international law after 15 emergency and aid workers were killed by the Israeli military. China's foreign minister says China is ready for a constructive role to end the Russia-Ukraine war. Wang Yi made the comment to Russian state media as he makes a 3-day visit to Moscow for strengthening ties between the two nations. Meanwhile, China has launched further military drills around the self-governed island of Taiwan as tensions continue to rise in the region. China also called Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te a parasite. The Trump administration has deported more alleged gang members to El Salvador despite a court order halting removals under the Alien Enemies Act. Media reports suggest these deportations have been made under general immigration laws. French far-right leader Marine Le Pen says she is innocent and would be appealing her ban from running for office until 5 years after being found guilty of misusing EU funds. Elon Musk says the ruling will backfire, while Le Pen said the decision was political. Amid the devastated landscapes of Myanmar, families cling to hope, waiting for a miracle amid the rubble. The 7.7 magnitude earthquake that struck on Friday has left over 2,000 people dead and thousands more injured. But stories of survival are still emerging, bringing moments of light in the darkness. Rescuers are working against time, knowing that the critical 72-hour survival window has now closed. In Mandalay, 2 teenage girls and their grandmother spent 15 agonising hours trapped under debris before being pulled to safety. Nearby, a teacher in Saigang City mourns the loss of an entire school building where young voices once filled the air with laughter. We were trapped in total darkness, recalled 2 women rescued from a collapsed hotel. If we didn't have a phone light, we might have not survived. Let's listen in to what the relatives of these victims have had to say.
ต้องเข้มแข็งค่ะเราอ่อนแอไม่ได้เพราะว่าเราต้องอยู่รอลูกเราจะอ่อนแอหรือจะเจ็บป่วยไม่ได้
พี่กู้ภัยเขาก็ทำงานเต็มที่อะไรเต็มที่ผมก็เห็นอย่างที่เห็นกันในข่าวในอะไรก็จะเป็นยังไงก็มันก็ต้องเป็นอย่างนั้นก็ยอมรับว่ามันจะเป็น
Well, grief is still weighing heavily on Myanmar's spiritual community. More than 160 monks have lost their lives in Mandalay as their monastery collapsed while they gathered for exams. Mosques and temples, once places of refuge, now stand in ruins. Across the border in Bangkok, rescue dogs search for signs of life in the wreckage of an under-construction high-rise. As families wait for news, search teams allow them to spend time with the dogs, hoping the comforts of wagging tails ease their pain, if only for a moment. Here is what Alongkot Chakaway, Deputy Director of Thailand Rescue Dog Association, has said.
แล้ววันนี้สิ่งพิเศษที่เราจะต้องทำสิ่งหนึ่งซึ่งเราไม่เคยทำมาก่อนสำหรับที่เหตุการณ์คราวนี้คือการนำสุนัขเนี่ยไปพบญาติของผู้ประสบภัยสิ่งที่เราทำที่ตุรกี แต่ว่าวันเนี้ยก็คือวันแรกที่เราจะเข้าไปทำเราเชื่อว่าสุนัขอาจจะทำให้คลายเศร้าได้บ้างในบางเวลาครับคลายกังวลได้
Amid the overwhelming devastation, aid is arriving. International teams from the United States, China and Russia have deployed, answering Myanmar's rare plea for assistance. But the road ahead is long, with infrastructure already weakened by years of conflict. Relief efforts face immense challenges. For now, as tremors subside, Myanmar holds on to hope. One rescue, one embrace and one moment at a time. Some of the trapped victims made videos documenting the states of fear they had to overcome, desperately calling out for help. Let's take a look at some of these desperate moments. Well, as we can see here, of course, the wreckage, the buildings that have been destroyed, people waiting and hoping for those rescuers to come and save them. Desperate moments of not knowing whether they would survive, whether somebody would be there to help them and save them from this devastating natural disaster that has caused horrible death and destruction for thousands, we now know. Scenes of the rubble, scenes of young people. Earthquakes, of course, don't just impact one group of people, the young, the old, the elderly. Everyone is affected. Here we can see, of course, the building that has been destroyed, children sitting there, helpless but still hopeful of those rescue efforts that we know are, of course, ongoing. Support from nations across the world and top economic countries leading those rescue efforts. It's not, of course, just in Myanmar, but in Thailand as well, where rescue efforts are continuing. My colleague Brian Thomas, who is at Ground Zero in Bangkok, has spoken to the head of the K9 search team. Mayo is leading the search and rescue operations with the dog squad. Let's take a look at what he said.
Well, we are covering, NewsX is on ground and we are covering everything that is happening in Bangkok. And today we are joined by a very special guest. We are joined by me, who is leading the search and rescue operations. Ma'am, if you can say about the search team, what are you doing, and the dogs that are here?
We are K9 team from Thai Volunteer Search and Rescue Dog. In this mission, we have 4 dogs, and we has been here since Friday.
What
like
dog?
The first day that the buildings collapsed. And we have 1 German Shepherd, 1 Border Collie, 1 Thai Ridgeback, and another 1 Labrador.
And what is that dog that is there?
This from China. This dog is from China.
Okay.
And they have a base in Thailand, so they come here and join us in this mission.
And any hopes?
You know, like every time, everywhere has hope. So yes.
Situation better now?
You see, they start to move all like to find the victims, and we still use they still use the dog and radar scanning to find what life and body.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for talking to us.
welcome.
So, yes, viewers, you've heard the person who was heading the K9 search team. We've spoken exclusively for NewsX and got an understanding about the updates and about the rescue operations they have been doing.
Well, thank you to Brian Thomas for filing that report. Of course, the search and rescue efforts are, of course, ongoing. We will bring you all of the updates as we get them, as the hope continues in Myanmar and Bangkok. But we do move on. And China's military has kicked off joint exercises involving its army, navy, air force and rocket force around Taiwan as a stern warning. This comes days after US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth vowed to counter China's aggression on his first visit to Asia. The drills, which will see China's armed forces close in on Taiwan from multiple directions, mainly focuses on sea-air combat readiness patrols, joint seizure of comprehensive superiority. As per reports, it will also focus on assault on maritime and ground targets and blockade on key areas and sea lanes to test joint operations capabilities of China's troops. China has released file footage of military operations as it begins drills around Taiwan. In this video released, China has made animations depicting Taiwan President Lai Ching-te as a parasite, further mocking the Taiwanese leader.
以军事挑衅、海上灰色地带袭扰等等单边行径，破坏区域的安全稳定，也片面升高了区域情势，公然挑战国际秩序，这是国际社会公认的麻烦制造者。总统府对此严厉的谴责。赖总统在第一时间已经指示国安与国防等相关单位严密的应处，对于。
In the meanwhile, Taiwan's presidential office condemns these drills, calling China troublemakers. Let's listen in to that.
以军事挑衅、海上灰色地带袭扰等等单边行径，破坏区域的安全稳定，也片面升高了区域情势，公然挑战国际秩序，这是国际社会公认的麻烦制造者。总统府对此严厉的谴责。 赖总统在第一时间已经指示国安与国防等相关单位严密的应处。对于
Moving now to the Middle East, and according to reports, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reversed his decision on the new Israel security chief, following Netanyahu's nomination of former Navy Commander Eli Shavit to head the country's domestic security agency. His office said in a statement that the Prime Minister thanks the Vice Admiral Shavit for his willingness to be called to duty, but upon further consideration intends to examine other candidates. This comes after Netanyahu said in late March that he no longer had trust in the Shin Bet chief, Ronan Bar, following the October 7, 2023 Hamas attack on southern Israel that killed 1,139 people and saw around 250 others taken captive. However, the Supreme Court has ordered a halt to Ronan Bar's sacking. Shavit was expected to assume office on April the 8th, the date when the Supreme Court is scheduled to rule on the dismissal of Ronan Bar. Meanwhile, Netanyahu has testified for around 2 hours before investigators at his office in Jerusalem as part of an investigation known as Qatargate, which examines alleged business ties between associates of Netanyahu and the Qatari government. The Israeli Prime Minister has slammed the investigation as politically motivated, denouncing the arrest of 2 of his aides. The arrests ratchet up political tensions in the country, where the government is trying to fire both the domestic security chief and attorney general while expanding the power of politicians over the appointment of judges. Staying in the region, and Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has condemned the Israeli strike that took place in Beirut's southern suburbs, calling on international allies to support the country's right to full territorial sovereignty. Aoun said in a statement released by the presidency that Israel's persistence in its aggression requires more effort from the US in addressing Lebanon's friends around the world and rallying them in support of our right to full sovereignty over land. He also called the strike a dangerous warning of intentions against Lebanon. The Lebanese Prime Minister also called the Israeli strike a clear breach of the ceasefire deal. This came after Israel's military carried out a strike on the southern suburbs of the Lebanese capital Beirut, targeting a Hezbollah operative, the second such strike since the November ceasefire with Hezbollah. The latest strike comes after rocket fire prompted Israel to bomb southern Beirut last week. The Israeli military released a joint statement with the domestic Shin Bet security agency and stated that the attack targeted a Hezbollah terrorist and Israel acted to eliminate him and remove that threat. The top 2 floors of a multi-storey building were destroyed by the strike in Hezbollah's Dahieh stronghold, while panicked residents poured out of their homes. According to reports on the ground, at least 3 people have been killed and are being helped by rescue workers. To Europe, and Russia and the US continue working on a potential Ukraine peace deal, despite US President Donald Trump expressing anger at Vladimir Putin's comments on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump hinted at imposing heavy tariffs on Russian oil buyers, but later said progress was being made. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov confirmed ongoing discussions with Washington and reiterated that Putin remains open to speaking with Donald Trump. However, Russia recently rejected a US-backed ceasefire plan and increased rhetoric about changing Ukraine's leadership. Meanwhile, China's top diplomat Wang Yi, currently in Moscow, affirmed Beijing's willingness to play a constructive role in ending the war while supporting Russia's interests. NATO countries, however, accused China of enabling the war by strengthening economic ties with Moscow. Trump has been pushing for a swift resolution, but has struggled to achieve a breakthrough. His administration faces challenges balancing diplomacy with strong rhetoric against both Russia and Ukraine. Let's listen in to Donald Trump.
No, I want to see him make a deal so that we stop Russian soldiers and Ukrainian soldiers and other people from being killed. But mostly it's Russian and Ukrainian soldiers. They're losing at least 2,500 human beings, beautiful human beings, a week. And I wanted to stop. And some people would say, why do you worry about Russian soldiers or Ukrainian soldiers? I worry because it's like they're just like you people. They're like us. They're like all of us. And I seem to have an ability to do those things. And if I can do that, I think it's a very worthwhile thing to do. And I think we will. No, I want to make sure that he follows through, and I think he will. I don't want to go secondary tariffs on his oil, but I think, it's something I would do if I thought he wasn't doing the job.
We stay in Europe, and Moldova has expelled 3 Russian diplomats after it accused Russia's embassy of engineering the escape of a pro-Kremlin lawmaker to prevent him being jailed over illegal political funding. The case of Alexander Nestorovsk is the latest in which Moldova's pro-European government has accused Russia of meddling in its domestic politics. Moscow denies the accusation. Following this, the Russian ambassador to Moldova, Oleg Ozerov, said the accusation of meddling was unfounded and unsubstantiated, and Russia's foreign ministry has even vowed to retaliate for the expulsions. Back to Asia, and amid the ongoing Trump tariff war, Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has said his government is making last-ditch efforts to get US President Donald Trump to exclude his country from an increase in auto tariffs due to take effect from April the 2nd. Ishiba has said that he is willing to fly to Washington to negotiate directly with Trump. The US will begin collecting 25% tariffs on auto imports, with taxes on fully imported cars kicking in at midnight US time. The tariffs are set to expand to applicable auto parts in weeks to come. Let's listen in to what Prime Minister Ishiba had to say.
先月公表されました自動車などに対しますアメリカの追加関税措置につきましては、我が国はアメリカへの最大の投資国でございます。そういうことも踏まえまして、引き続きアメリカに対して我が国の除外を強く求めてまいります。
Staying in the Indo-Pacific, and Vietnam is lowering import taxes on several products, including cars, gas and farm goods. The move comes as the US prepares to announce new tariffs on all countries. Taxes on cars, chicken legs, almonds, pistachios and other items will be reduced. Liquefied gas duties will also drop from 5% to 2%. The decision follows a pledge from Vietnam's Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh to increase US imports. America's trade deficit with Vietnam is the 3rd highest in the world, behind only China and Mexico. Analysts say Hanoi hopes to avoid harsher American tariffs. Business leaders say that Vietnam is trying to soften the impact rather than retaliating. The Finance Ministry, however, says the changes are a response to global economic uncertainty. The US remains Vietnam's biggest market, with many American companies investing in factories there. Vietnam also gained from the US-China trade war, attracting more manufacturing as companies sought alternatives to China. Back to North America, and the United States has deported more alleged Venezuelan and MS-13 gang members to El Salvador. 17 suspected criminals linked to violent groups were flown out by the US military. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that the group includes murderers and rapists, but members of the families of those deported deny any gang ties. The deportations come after President Trump invoked the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to target the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. A federal judge blocked the policy after a legal challenge, but the administration wants the Supreme Court to reinstate it. The American Civil Liberties Union says the government is using a checklist to identify gang members, including factors like tattoos and clothing. The deportees were taken to El Salvador's terrorism confinement center under a deal with the Salvadoran government. SpaceX has launched the first human spaceflight directly over Earth's polar regions, a days-long privately funded orbital mission involving 4 astronauts. Named Fram 2, the famed Norwegian ship built in the 19th century for Arctic and Antarctic expeditions, the mission will feature a range of experiments, including taking the first X-ray in space and growing mushrooms in microgravity. It's hoped that the research will support future long-duration space travel to Mars. The crew launched aboard a SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule on a Falcon 9 rocket. Cheers rang out in the control room as the powerful rocket roared upward, lighting up the night sky with a long orange plume of flame as the craft began its journey towards Earth's north and south poles. NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore have appeared for their first interview after landing back on Earth from space. The duo discussed their hectic journey following their mammoth 286-day stay on the International Space Station owing to a problem with Boeing's spaceship. As the expedition was scheduled to last for just 8 days, the two were questioned who was responsible for its failure. Wilmore blamed everyone, including himself. The duo, however, reiterated against claims that Boeing failed them. Let's listen to what Sunita had to say.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it because, we all have different opinions and perspectives, right? So we had a very unique perspective of being in the spacecraft. Nobody else had that perspective. So I think us providing them with our perspective on what happened and them telling us what their perspective of what happened down here through the telemetry and mission control, and then talking about what they've been doing, because we've been sort of focused on other things for the past couple months and not really focusing right on all of the work that's being done. So I think it's going to be a sharing relationship right there, and just discussing where we stand and where we think we need to go.
While speaking about experiences now back on Earth after the long extended stay, here is what Sunita Williams also said.
Pretty hard when you come back, and it doesn't mean you don't even have to be up there 9 months. Like my other missions were 6 and 5 months, and you do feel pretty nauseous when you first get back. It's just that inner ear neurovestibular feeling for the first 24 to 48 hours. And I knew, having gone up twice before, that it was just a matter of time. So I was like, just push through it. You got this. I mean, just make yourself get up, make yourself go take a shower, and just push over those things and make yourself walk down, on a line to just work on all of those little small agility muscles.
Moving on, and a fire at a gas pipeline operated by Malaysia's Petronas has injured 33 people near Kuala Lumpur. 6 individuals were hospitalised following the blaze in Pechong, which affected homes in the area. Firefighters are still battling the blaze, which started from a leak in the pipeline. Images like those on screen from the scene show large flames and smoke billowing into the sky. Rescue teams are working to free people trapped in houses in Kampung Kuala Sungai Baru, while Petronas confirmed that the pipeline has been isolated. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Matches across South Korean baseball were cancelled on Tuesday after a fan died when a piece of metal at a stadium fell off and struck her. The incident happened on Saturday during a KBO League game between home team NC Dinos and the LG Twins at Changwon NC Park in the country's southeast. According to reports, a piece of aluminium installed outside the windows of a club office fell from about 18 metres, fatally injuring the fan and breaking the collarbone of her sister. The police said that the woman in her 20s had died of head injuries. The Korea Baseball Organisation said in a statement that the KBO has designated April the 1st to April the 3rd as a mourning period. That is all that we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more of the latest breaking news from across the world.